I'm so excited to be part of this monthly program series. As you all know, my roots are in Ohio, even though I now live in beautiful Flowery Branch, Georgia. Even my dog is named Buckeye after the Buckeye State. So Ohio will always be home, and so will the Central Atlantic region. As you see, I teach flower show schools and design and have been doing that for 22 years and have gotten to travel and get to know many people throughout the country. One of the things that has been of great interest to everyone when I teach is artistic crafts. And so I'm going to be talking today about how artistic crafts are judged. Botanical Arts is a division of a flower show, and artistic crafts is a section of that division. There are several very strict rules that the National Garden Clubs have for materials you can use when you are creating an exhibit for artistic crafts. First of all, the exhibit must contain some fresh and or dried plant material. Only dried plant material may be treated, which means that fresh plant material may never be painted, tinted, or dyed in any manner, but all of that can be done to dried plant material. There's no artificial plant material allowed in any section of the flower show, and endangered or locally invasive plant material may not be used. The schedule may determine the type of craft, the staging, and the number of entries that can be allowed in the flower show. A card listing the plant material used must be included with all artistic crafts entries. And this is for educational purposes, so that anyone coming up and looking at your creation knows what you have used and can easily recognize it. It is judged by the artistic crafts scale of points. There are several different types of artistic crafts. The first is jewelry and ornamental accessories. These items must be ready to wear with fasteners, claps, etc. as needed. In other words, even if it's a beautiful pendant that's been styled out of plant material, if there's nothing to hang it on a chain visible, then that cannot be used. It has to have some sort of fastener or clasp. Non-plant material may be used for construction, but must not show unless the schedule states it. And if the schedule states it, it will state something like pin may be visible, or hoops for earrings may be visible. The plant material may not be carved into figural forms. In other words, if you're a whittler or a wood carver, we're not going to have any of these wood carvings in our artistic crafts exhibits. However, such forms may be assembled from plant material, from clipping, and clipping or shaping of the material is allowed. Another artistic craft is decorations, and that would include things like decorated packages, kissing balls, decorated candle holders, dried flower pictures, bookmarks, invitations, napkin rings, nosegays, ornaments, birdhouses, etc. So the scope of things you can do for artistic crafts just continues to grow. We can also have trees featuring decorations. The tree may be real or artificial, depending on local regulations. for instance, if you were in a public building and fresh evergreen trees are not allowed, obviously you can't use them. You may use an artificial tree. The trees are not to be judged, just the decorations and the placement of those decorations on the tree is what's judged. The tree is evaluated on the quality of the decorations and how they are placed. And the schedule will state the type of tree and who furnishes it. In other words, whether the tree is furnished by the committee or whether each individual exhibitor does their own. The handbook for flower shows is what we use for our reference, and all artistic crafts are listed in the handbook for flower shows. One of the things that we are aspiring to as we enter the flower shows are our blue ribbons. And when judges judge, 100 points is the starting point. So your exhibit is judged against perfection. It must earn 90 or more points to earn a blue ribbon. The point scoring sheet that is used by all judges for the National Garden Clubs is available online through gardenclub.org, and you go to Flower Show Schools and then Flower Show School Forms. The point scoring sheet that we use, first of all, these are the qualities that we use for judging. The first is conformance, that receives 14 points. Design receives 48 points. Craftsmanship receives 12 points. Technique, 12 points, and distinction, 14 points, giving us a total of 100 points. And if some of you are looking at the handbook and saying, oh, this point count isn't the same that my handbook shows, it's because this was a change that was made to the handbook about 18 months ago. And that will be found on the revised handbook as it's listed at gardenclub.org. Let's talk a few minutes about these qualities, because I know if you're not familiar with judging, they don't mean a whole lot to you. Conformance, first of all, is given 14 points total, but 7 of those points are given for the design type. And what that means is, if the schedule has asked for a pressed flower picture and a plaque has been given instead of a pressed flower picture, then it doesn't conform to design type. And then the 7 points remaining are for all of the other requirements. And as we talk about the pressed flower pictures, I have asked for a specific size, a specific way it's staged, and those are the remaining requirements. We then move on to design. And design is the principles of design. This is the largest point count in this point scoring sheet. And these principles of design, balance, contrast, dominance, proportion, rhythm, and scale, each are addressed when we look at an entry in a flower show. What about craftsmanship? Are the finishes professional and flawless as possible? Is there a neatness to the components? Does the craft exhibit manual dexterity and skill in execution? Is the overall design harmonious? And were the components well selected? These are things that go into craftsmanship. And when we are looking at a completed exhibit, judges look for these particular qualities. One of the things that is fun in teaching design is talking about the attributes of design, because the attributes are what go into making a successful completed arrangement, and they are beauty, distinction, expression, and harmony. Beauty is intangible. It's a quality evoking aesthetic pleasure. We all have our own definition of beauty, and that's something that as judges, we have to work with so that we find we are not using opinions as we judge. Distinction is marked superiority in all aspects. We look at conformance, design, selection, organization, expression, condition, and craftsmanship. So for an exhibit to receive all of the points for distinction, it has to meet those requirements. Expression is how an idea, an emotion, or mood is communicated to the viewer. And finally, harmony, a pleasing, orderly arrangement of components according to the principles of design. Craftsmanship, points you can earn. No fingerprints or smudges on a botanical picture on glass. And when you have done your creation, hold it up to a good light and make sure you haven't left fingerprints on it. You can go glassless unless the schedule requires you use glass. One of the problems you run into with pressed flowers is if they're not well fastened to the background, that they may curl. So you want to be sure that they're well fastened if you don't use glass. Use a white PVA glue such as Elmer's or Unibond, anything that dries colorless and is easy to use. Techniques. This is another judging quality for artistic crafts. Were there any special techniques required? Is there something about this that makes it unique? Are there any of the mechanics visible? And finally, distinction. The selection of components, the condition of components. Now, when we talk about condition of components, we're talking about, are any of the plant materials torn? Are they wilted? Are they showing browning? That's condition. And then interpretation of the title. This is where it differs from judging design in the design division. Interpretation of the title is given an entire quality on our point scoring sheet for design, but distinction in artistic crafts is where interpretation of the title is addressed. And then finally, usability of the crafted item. In other words, does it look like the fastener on a picture would not hold that picture in place? That would be usability. Let's talk about a specific class in artistic crafts. The title of this class is Benny Goodman, A King of Swing, and this is a pressed flower picture. The requirements for this pressed flower picture are that the picture must be framed and should not exceed 8 by 10 inches. It should be staged on an easel, and all the plant material used must be listed on a 3 by 5 card. Exhibit 1. We seem to be missing the picture.
Hey,
we'll move on.
The picture has been swallowed. Okay. So if we find it later, but we'll go, how about if we go to the next one? interesting. It's been swallowed. Here we go.
Yes, it was there. Okay, this is exhibit 2. Things that we look at when we're looking at this picture. Is there contrast in colors? Is there harmony in this? Is the space well filled? That's proportion. Rhythm. Does the middle part stop the flow of the design? Are the flowers placed too close together in the center and that interferes with the rhythm? Scale. Are the flowers the correct size compared to each other? And then we also look at craftsmanship, technique, and distinction when we're looking at that particular picture. Exhibit 3, this is a lovely pressed flower picture. However, the placement of some of the plant materials gives the feeling of 2 separate pictures, which affects both rhythm and proportion. Now for a quick change. We're going to shift into how do I actually make a pressed flower picture? Drying flowers and design techniques for pressed flowers. The traditional method of drying flowers, first of all, you pick the flowers in the heat of the day, remove any visible moisture, and that can be done with a Q-tip or a tissue. Place them face down on absorbent paper, cover with more absorbent paper, and compress with weights or a flower press. Allow a minimum of 2 weeks for the flowers to dry. My favorite traditional method of drying, and these are hard to come by now, but I have some telephone books. And old telephone books, you don't have to worry about the print coming off onto the flowers as you press them. They're the paper's absorbent and they work extremely well. This is a fun method for pressing flowers, a microwave press. You can make one. They're available online if you look for them. Just go online and look for a microwave flower press. But to make it yourself, 2 ceramic tiles, 2 pieces of thick felt cut to fit the tile, and 2 pieces of muslin cut to fit the tile. You layer 1 tile smooth side up, put a piece of felt on top of it and muslin on top of that. Then lay your flower face down on top of the on top of the tile. You place flowers, cover with muslin, felt, and tile. Again, put the smooth side of the tile down and microwave it until it's dry. Now, each microwave you use is going to be a little bit different, so you do have to play with your own microwave for a while. I usually start at 50 seconds in the microwave and then add a little more time if needed. When these flowers come out of the microwave, if you've microwaved them too long, they'll have brown edges. And I actually one time hit 5 minutes instead of 50 seconds, and ended up causing a little fire in my microwave. So again, be careful when you're looking at your buttons. When you bring them out of the microwave, then place them face down between 2 pieces of absorbent paper and allow them to stay that way. Let's talk about how to do a specific design. I think when we talk about how to dry and how to press flowers, people get excited and they do that, and then they go, oh, now what do I do? There are several methods. Each of us will figure out what's easiest for us. If I'm doing a crescent design, I usually lightly draw a crescent on a piece of paper, and I use my background paper. I like to use something that has a little substance like watercolor paper, because then it's much easier to pick it up when it's dry. But I lightly draw this, the crescent shape, and then place small pieces of fern along the crescent shape, filling in as much as you like. I don't glue yet. I wait until I have completed my entire design and then pick up each piece carefully using a toothpick and plain white school glue and put a drop of glue behind each piece. You want to be careful not to get too much glue. And you allow it to dry before framing it. While I'm creating this design, I usually place the frame over it to make sure that the design is going to fit within the frame that I'm using. This shows the actual creation of a crescent design, starting with the slide on the left, then going to the slide on the right, and the one in the middle is the completed design. I do the same thing with the traditional triangle design. Again, I lightly draw the shape of a triangle on background paper. I place the fern pieces so there's a center line going straight up the middle from the base of the triangle to the point. Once again, I wait until I have all of this in place before I start gluing. I add additional pieces of fern to fill it out, covering the lines that I've drawn. Then I put in the filler material and finally the accent flowers. Again, I very gently lift each piece and glue using a toothpick and white glue. Allow the glue to dry completely before placing under glass. And the reason I say that is, if it's not completely dried, you can run into a couple of things. One is that the flowers will glue themselves to the glass, and the other is that they may actually mold if it's wet. So you want to make sure it's completely dry. And these are my examples of the triangle design. Starting from the left, first, second, and then third. Just to give you a little bit of an example of some other types of artistic crafts, we're also going to talk about a corsage, swinging on a star. It's made of all fresh plant materials to be staged on a black background. The backing for the background is 8 by 10 inches. This corsage must include a corsage pin. Non-plant material is permitted, but plant material must dominate. This is where, when you're doing a corsage, you could add a ribbon, you can add pearls, you can add little squiggles made out of other wires and things. But again, the plant material must dominate. All of the plant materials must be listed on a 3 by 5 card. I personally think all floral designers should know how to make a corsage. It was one of those things that was fun for me when my kids were in school. The boys would all come over and have me make corsages for them to take to their dates. So it's fun to learn. And basically, instructions are you wire the plant material and wire them all together. So let's look at a couple of beautiful corsages we have. This first one, look at that. Isn't it? The colors are just lovely in that corsage. I think one of the problems that we found with the corsage was the lovely silver gray fabric underneath it, because it interfered with the actual elements of the corsage. The other was the rose in the center looks like it might be wilting a little bit. Again, we're looking at a picture, so I can't be certain. Now, if you look at the white dots above the rose, that's an example of non-plant material that's used. but certainly that does not dominate. The flowers are much more dominant than the non-plant material. Huh. There it is. Okay. Look at this. Look at those absolutely beautiful orchids. Now, if you see that background is 8 by 10 inches. That means that that corsage is probably 10 inches long. And that's where under distinction, we have the quality that says usability. And it's very possible that in looking at this in person, we would state it might be a little bit too big to be worn as a corsage. And I think that is it with our exhibits. In summary, you know now how artistic crafts are judged. You have an understanding of how to create your own pressed flower picture, and hopefully the range of artistic craft design opportunities are things you will try in the future. Create your own artistic craft. Wishing a blue ribbon for you. Thank you so much for your attendance. And now we will look at the questions. And it looks like there are about 14 of them.
Okay. Do you want me to read through them for you?
Sure, sure.
Okay. And I apologize for the examples because, as you know, I feel badly if I went to the other copy. Just try for just a minute. Everybody can stand up and take a quick jumping jack. I want to see if I can find the other Canva.
While she's doing that, Marlene Hatton's question did just pop up, and she asked if the botanical names must be on the 3x5 card. And the answer to that is no. They only require botanical names in horticulture. Now, under Botanical Arts, the botanical names in Botanical Arts horticulture are required, but not in artistic crafts and not in design.
Okay, Lynn, for you, you can hit the ones that we missed. How about
okay,
this
here we go.
Example?
Look at this, the cherry yellow roses, and a perfect example of a ribbon used on a corsage. And you know, honestly, most of us are used to seeing corsages with a ribbon of some sort on it. Okay, and then I think you
this is the only other one we missed about rhythm.
That's right. That's right. And rhythm is a visual path through the design. And what we have in this, if you look at it, there are actually two rhythmic paths. One's almost a crescent that goes from the left side down through the large flower and out to the outer edge. And then we have another one inside it. So there are two separate rhythms. And that would probably be a fault in the design. Okay, back to the questions.
Okay.
Can you use a convection oven or an air dryer instead of a microwave to press flowers?
Of course you can. The problem with the convection oven, it would have to be set extremely low. And it's one of those things you can try and see. You need to be able to press the flowers with something heavy when you put them in. I don't use a convection oven. I've only tried the air drying and the microwave.
The next person asked what all the other divisions under Botanical Arts and Crafts were, artistic crafts were. I told them it was listed and we had gone over it in the beginning.
Oh, okay. The plant material itself does not have to be attached to the card unless your particular club wants that done, in which case they would write it into the flower show schedule.
Lynn, we've had requests, and I need to tell everybody, we were going to upload this, but because we had two little blips, I will have to be very nice to Lynn to ask her if she would do the voiceover on the slides again, because what we do is this becomes a video, but we do have a PDF actually, and everybody who has registered for this program can receive a copy. It's just that it's so large, the file is so large that it might be difficult to convey that, but we'll try. So if you obviously are registered because you're on this program, we can send you those links. And thank you for bearing with the little blips. I thought we handled those pretty well. And is there anything else, Pat? You
Yeah,
can.
there's
We
one more
still have
question.
questions.
Yeah, we're looking.
Oh,
looking.
okay.
Would you take off points? Where did that go? Would you take off, if judging a corsage, if parts of the corsage are beyond the background?
The answer to that would be yes. Yes, if a background size is established, that gives you the size of the corsage.
Okay, I'm looking.
How do
Somebody.
you dry big, thick flowers? Besides for a long time.
Big, thick flowers may be dried. One of the easiest things to do, for instance, if you're drying a full-blown rose, the easiest thing to do is to pull the petals off and reassemble it. It doesn't sound easy, but what happens when you dry it, you place it face down, or if you want it in silhouette, you can place it that way. Weight it down and microwave it at intervals to allow it to dry without burning.
Lynn, I've dried in silica gel, but then you can't call it a pressed flower.
No, that's true. That's true. But you certainly can. One of our CAR members, Carol Johnson, does a wonderful job drying large flowers, and she has dried things like lilies, and it can be done. It just takes a little more time and patience to do it.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
As a judge, and I've shared with Lynn my sad story of having almost enough honorable mentions to do a small bathroom. As a judge, would you say, from your perspective, because I know different people have different perspectives, when you are doing artistic crafts, what should be the very first thing that would be the wow factor to at least get enough attention to go for those 90 points?
The wow factor.
Yes. Is it the material or the design?
Or the color?
It's actually a combination of both. If you are going for a blue ribbon, you want all of your materials to be impeccable. You want them to be bright colors. You want them to be in good condition. And then you want to be sure that they are arranged in a way that there is a design there. You know, pressed flowers are beautiful placed under glass, even if there is no design. But in artistic crafts, 48 points are given to design. So that's what you have to look at. Is there a completed design there?
Okay. And can you air dry in a vase? Is there a depth restriction when you enter a picture design without glass?
If it's called a picture, there is no there's no limit to the depth. If it's a pressed flower picture, then it needs to be flat. It needs to look pressed. Most of the time, you're going to see them written in the flower show schedule that the pressed flowers should be under glass.
And in your years of judging, what would you say that you've seen that most clubs or districts or states have used in terms of a category that seems to be the most popular. And I'm talking about artistic crafts, not pictures, but photographs, because we've seen more people add photography to their shows. But in terms of artistic crafts, is it hats? Is it boxes? Is it shoes? What have you seen the most of in the last couple of years?
It depends on the scope of the show. Most single club, smaller shows, if they're including artistic crafts, have things like bookmarks, note cards, and stationery that include pressed flowers. I've also seen the wearable art in large shows like the Philadelphia show. I've seen everything from hats to shoes to dresses. Again, it depends on your clubs, and you really can go just about anywhere with it. And most clubs do. They look at what their members want to do and then go that way.
We have a comment. Can pictures be enhanced with, say, watercolor touches?
Like pressed flower pictures?
I would assume that.
Okay, absolutely.
That's what you meant.
Absolutely. In fact, the pressed flower pictures can be color enhanced, the flowers themselves. And that can be done with chalks, and it can be done with painting. The problem is that then you have to dry them again once you have gotten them wet.
I want to do a shout out for a minute. Marlene belongs to the Royal Palm Garden Club in Florida and in Fort Myers. And her friend Paula said this was a great diversion from wind and rain. And she said, we love her too. So Marlene, the president of Ohio, is being shared in Fort Myers, and hopefully she'll have a Florida home to go back to. Let me see. Pat, do you see anything else where we are? Anything else we might have missed?
I didn't see anything else except something about a birdhouse design from Paula Harper.
Okay, I don't
birdhouses, generally speaking, and I don't see the full question, but birdhouses are really fun. A lot of times what a club will do is they will purchase four birdhouses that are exactly the same, and then have the exhibitors enhance them in any way that they can. But they start out with the same birdhouse. The other way to do it is you can give a size of a birdhouse and have each exhibitor bring in their own.
Okay, she said give a good example of a birdhouse design.
Okay, a good example of a birdhouse design. You have a wooden birdhouse that is unpainted. You could cover the birdhouse with pressed leaves and then put a waterproof finish on top of it to make it usable out of doors. If you don't want it to be usable out of doors, your schedule should state that. It should say a decorated birdhouse to be used for ornamental purposes. Because when you start decorating a birdhouse with dried flowers and plant material, you can't set it outside and expect it to last. But if it's for decorative purposes, then the decorations you put on it are certainly usable.
And along the lines of the birdhouse, Cecilia asked, does it have to be completely covered in plant material?
No, not unless the schedule states that. That's up to you as schedule writers, what you want in your show.
So is one of the secrets to all of this, if your club has a show, get on the committee and help write the schedule.
Yes, have them write in things that you like to do.
I think I'm now finally onto it, Lynn.